Hey everybody, Matty Ice here, and in today's video I want to talk about the new Strand Warlock aspect, WeaveWalk. Now this aspect has been out for a little while, but it's been kind of turned off and on pretty regularly throughout the last few weeks, and now it seems to finally be on permanently, so I want to talk about it and some of the builds you can do for it. Now, first and foremost, if you do find this video helpful, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like it and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. We're doing great and we're on track to reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, going into this particular aspect, it allows you to essentially become invisible using your melee charge as a timer. And while you're invisible, you have extremely high damage resistance, I believe it's 90%, and you generate threadlings pretty quickly. You get about 5 per charge of your melee, maybe even a little bit more than that. So if you have a full melee charge, you can generate up to 15 threadlings pretty quickly, and again, you might even be able to get more than that. Now, you can deactivate this by activating it again in the air by jumping and pressing X on mouse and keyboard, or by casting your Rift. Now if you do this, you're going to release all those perched threadlings, and they go out and do their threadling thing. One thing that I did notice here though, is that you actually do less damage if you have your threadlings shoot off while you're still at WeaveWalk. You can do this by having any kind of damage over time effect, poison from Osteo or Necrotics, Wither Horde, an Arc Buddy, any kind of situation where you're able to deal damage over time while you're in WeaveWalk. Will proc the threadlings to go after the target, but again, they seem to do like 50% less damage. This is really unfortunate, and sadly, I think it kind of ruins the build, and hopefully Bungie fixes this in the future, because honestly, I find this to be a little underwhelming. I did some damage testing here in Grasp of Avarice. As you can see in the background gameplay, I'm just running around testing things, how it works, and it's great for ad clear. I'm pretty low light in this encounter, but not so low that things are, swords for me. But it still kind of does a really good job at ad clear, so I imagine that this will do a pretty good job in like niche encounters, seasonal events, things like that. But once you get to like master or high-end content, I don't know how effective it's going to be. Again, unless you're constantly coming out of WeaveWalk to cast your Rift and shoot these threadlings, you're going to be doing reduced damage. So in this example here, I'm at the Ogre boss. I've got a full melee charge, a full super, everything's ready to go. I'm going to cast WeaveWalk with a damage over time effect on the Ogre, and you'll be able to see that each threadling just immediately ploops out and goes attacks the boss. Each one's doing a staggering 5,000 damage, maybe 6,000, it's hard to tell which one's which. And then I cast the super, which does probably twice as much as the threadlings actually did while I was in WeaveWalk. All in all, a fully kitted out WeaveWalk with a Wither Horde and a super does a whopping 632,000 damage, which is practically nothing. So this is definitely not a boss damage build, but either way, it could be fun, so let's get into it. Alright, so getting into the aspects and fragments here. First and foremost, you need WeaveWalk, pretty obvious. Unfortunately, it does only have a 1 fragment slot. I highly disagree with this, I think it should be 2. I don't see how this is any worse than Banner of War, or any better than Banner of War. It doesn't deserve that kind of nerf. But you need WeaveWalk, and then I think Weaver's Call is the obvious one to pair with this. Casting your Rifts generates those threadlings, and also deploys ones you have perched from WeaveWalk. It also just lets you have more threadlings in general. I mean, you could pair it with Mindspun Invocation if you want to consume like a threadling grenade and run that with it, but I don't see these other two really working in synergy as well as that one does. As for fragments, again, I think Thread of Evolution is a pretty obvious one here. Threadlings go further, deal more damage, and it's a bonus to your intellect. Why not? Thread of Generation, I feel like you could probably drop this one. I personally like it in there just because if you're going to be prioritizing your melee over your grenade energy regen, which is kind of anti-intuitive for warlocks, this is just going to help you bring that grenade back up, and then you can use your grenade to help generate melee energy in the future. So I think this kind of helps that synergy of ability spam there. Then we've also got Thread of Warding. I feel like this is just like a necessary thing on any kind of Strand class, especially because you're going to probably end up running lower resilience just to make up for these stat differences that you want. This could help you survive. Any other ones in here that you might want to consider are something that generates extra melee energy, so such as Thread of Fury. If you're going to be making a lot of tangles, this could be a good way to get extra melee energy, kind of like Thread of Generation. You could potentially swap that out for this one. But otherwise, I don't really see any of these others doing a whole lot of work for you. again, like if you wanted to focus more on tangle generation to feed like Thread of Fury, you could go that route, but I just don't see it really working. Thread of Rebirth is the only one I could potentially see as an option here, just because again, it makes more threadlings, and that's kind of the whole crux of this build, is you want to make those threadlings. I decided to run Grapple Grenade with this one instead of my Threadling Grenade, just because Grapple actually counts as a melee or a grenade kill, depending on what you do or what you have set up as far as your mods go. So I think this is something that can really help benefit your overall ability regen, and I'll show that off in the mods. Alright, going into the mods, I went with a hands-on because again, Grapple Grenade counts as a melee or a grenade kill. I feel like that's just going to be a bit more beneficial for you. You can use your melee normally and you can still get that hands-on benefit if you kill like a thrall or something. Speaking of, Focusing Strike, Momentum Transfer, Bolstering Detonation, these are going to be all of your ability regen things, and all of these kind of feed your class ability, your grenade cooldown, your melee energy. These all just kind of feed into that. So pick whichever ones you think will do the best for you. I personally liked having one of each. Focusing Strike is going to give me some class ability when I do damage with a melee attack, and remember that tangles are coded as melee attacks and melee damage, so this kind of feeds with that. Momentum Transfer is going to give me more melee energy back as well, and then Bolstering Detonation gives me more class ability. So this all just kind of like feeds into each other, where I should be able to get my Rift and my melee energy back as quickly as possible. And any kind of grenade regen is going to be done by Demolitionist on any weapons that I have, or by Thread of Generation. Armor slots, put on whatever resistances you want. I don't really think there's any need for dropping one of these for kind of Charge with Light. There's no Charge with Light really in here. The boots, I like to just keep survival things on here, the boots, and then one Surge. On the Bond, I run double Outreach and a Time Dilation. You could drop the Time Dilation for like a ability kickstart, or potentially a distribution, something like that, to help your regen even more. Again, we're not focusing on the surges here so much, so that surge damage, you don't really need to hold those charges. So you could drop that and focus more on the utility kickstart or something like that, just to make sure you always have your Rift up and running. But that is essentially the build here. It's not super great. It's good ad clear. It's not super great boss damage. It's just something fun to do. Hopefully they buff it soon and they undo that nerf that happened with the damage from threadlings while you're invisible in WeaveWalk. But otherwise, that's going to be it. I hope you found this video helpful. Again, if you did, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like it and subscribe to the channel. And thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.